Marriage and Money podcast
Yes,
with
it
Egypt and Mike.
is.
We're back. We hope you had a wonderful week.
Listen, this podcast, we do not claim to be experts or know-it-alls. We do this to learn and inspire.
Yes, we do. And so Mike was just asking, well, how about you ask everybody?
Well,
I think
here's
that's a
what
good
I was
question for
asking
everybody.
and I was thinking this morning. What is it that you know now that you wish you knew as a kid or a teenager or in college?
There's a lot of things. Well, number one, I wish I knew as a kid the power of compounding interest. Like, I wouldn't have spent any money on an easy bake oven. I wouldn't have spent anything on another Barbie doll. Do you know what I mean?
I get it.
Not when you know that over the course of 20 or 30 years, what that will bring you. So that's number one. Teach your kids the power of compounding interest. I wish I knew that the farther I ran away from a man, the more he would run after me.
Is that so?
Think about it. How long did I run away from you?
Quite some time. She was so jaded, guys, when I tell you. There was one point she was on air in New York City, and I looked at her and I said, listen, just let me love you. I am not all of your past relationships. For the longest. She even said to me, you know, I'm dating somebody, right? Wasn't dating nobody. Wasn't dating nobody.
So that was my strategy, right? Because I felt that I was too available for other men that I'd met. Like I was, you know, they would call me, I'd call them right back. They would text me, I was texting right back. You available? Yes, I'm available. You know, and so that never worked out for me. And I said, I got to make this all about me, but not act like I'm making it about me, really making it about me. So I dove into myself and health and self-care and all of that. So when you showed up, I said, I am not going to do what I always do. I'm not going to veer away from me and make it all about you again. So I did. I lied. I was like, I got a date on Friday.
I was like, I'll be right here when you get back.
I was home making it a Blockbuster. This is how you know it was a long time ago. It wasn't Netflix, it was Blockbuster. I was making it a Blockbuster night, and he would text and call, I'm sorry, I'm still out on my date.
Didn't work, fellas. Didn't work. I knew what I wanted. I saw my wife when I saw my wife. So I asked you that question, though, babe.
It worked. Go ahead.
Because I was driving, and I was thinking, man, in our community, in the Black community, the Latin community, there are a lot of things that are not taught. Simple stuff like credit. I wish I knew more about credit instead of going to college and every time they at the table handing out those applications, I filled out every single one, got every single credit card, and screwed myself over. So I think it's important for us to learn that at an early age.
I think estate planning is a very important, and people think that I have to have money, I have to have a family, I have to have kids to do estate planning, and that's not the truth. So Mike and I thought it would be a really good idea if we brought an attorney in to talk to everybody about estate planning, because I think there's just so many misconceptions about who needs it, what it is. Sometimes you think you've done it if you've planned a will, and you really have not. So help us welcome, she's hailing from Spelman and University of Maryland School of Law, dynamic attorney and mother of five.
Mother of five. Looking like she's one of the kids right now,
Anitra Walker. Anitra, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so very much. I'm super excited to be here talking about one of the most important subjects that's to me, and that's estate planning. And it's very important that we get the word out because you mentioned earlier that African Americans, we just don't do this.
Yes.
We don't.
Yes.
You would be incredibly shocked. There's 29% out of African Americans that have an estate plan.
Wow.
That's up. From 17% in 2020.
I'm sorry, I just have to say it before we go any further. 5 kids?
Right.
That part.
Where?
Right?
You don't look but 25 yourself.
That's so sweet. That's so sweet. Yes, I have 5. I have a 24-year-old who's at Kennesaw. I'm super proud of her. She's adulting.
Yeah.
And then I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old and 2 7-year-olds, a boy and a girl.
So you have twins?
I do.
Twins.
I do.
What? And a lawyer.
And an attorney.
Highly
yes.
educated. Look at
Thank
that.
you.
An inspiration.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we want to break it down
Absolutely.
so that even the youngest person watching can understand, because I think that's where it starts. If we simplify everything, then people won't be afraid of it.
Exactly.
It'll be embedded in them. That's why
Exactly.
with our 10-year-old, we got her into buying real estate early. That way when she gets older, she's not afraid.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
So,
it.
number one, people think, I don't need an estate plan because I don't have an estate. I don't have money, or I'm not rich. What do I need to plan for?
Absolutely. I almost wish it wasn't called estate planning.
Okay.
Because I think when people hear the word estate, they think, oh, I've got to have a lot of money, like the Rockefellers. I don't have an estate. I have a house. No, everyone has an estate. And if we just concentrate and focus on the planning aspect of it, I think more people can understand it and would be willing to do it. So with estate planning, if you could think of estate planning like a garage, and in that garage, you're going to have tools. A will is one of the tools that you have in that
Only
garage.
one.
Okay.
One of the tools.
Not the complete
right,
plan.
Definitely not the complete plan. Another tool you can have is a trust. And then you'll also have some other documents that assist, like a power of attorney and a healthcare directive.
Okay.
So going back to the will is what a lot of people probably think about when they think of estate planning.
Right.
That is that document, that legal document where you basically identify the people that you want to get your stuff, right? And you've also identified someone who's responsible for being in charge of the process.
Okay.
With a will, you have to go through probate. There's no way around going through probate with a will. So it is going to be a public...
Help folks understand who don't know what probate is.
Absolutely. The probate process is court. It's basically court. And you go to court and you have to present the will. And it's a process where we determine who your creditors are. And then at the end, the people that you've identified as your beneficiaries, they will receive your items, your stuff.
What's the difference between a trust and a will?
Great question. So a will, it doesn't become effective until you die.
Okay.
It's just there, and once you die, then the process of probate begins. But a trust is a little bit different. A revocable trust is active as soon as you sign it. Okay? And a revocable trust, instead of just having a document that indicates who will get your assets, a revocable trust has three main parties. One is the trust maker, the person who makes it. So if you were to have a trust, you'd be the trust maker. You're also going to be the beneficiary while you're living. And then you're also going to be the person who's responsible for, you're going to be the trustee. So you're playing that while you're alive, you have all three roles. Okay.
We have a revocable trust and we have a business trust.
Yes.
Then we have an irrevocable trust as well. So three elements.
You guys are all set.
Yeah.
But we didn't know we
didn't
needed
know.
all of that.
You are all set.
We recently just set that up.
Okay.
Yeah, we just sat down and had to revise our estate
Yes.
to encompass everything. And we're like, we
Absolutely.
need a who? Why do we need three?
That's the most important thing. You want to make sure you go to a licensed attorney and talk to them. They're going to listen to you. They're going to determine what your goals and objectives are. They're going to listen to, in terms of your assets, to try to figure out what's the best tool for you. Because there's so many different ways that you can put together.
Wow.
So someone's watching and they're saying, okay, I don't have a house. I don't have children. If I leave, I'm leaving.
Yes.
Why do they still need to have an estate plan?
Great question. So estate plan is not just about your stuff or finding guardians for your children. It's also about thinking about the unforeseeable, right? So that now we get into the issue of what if something happens to me and I can't make decisions for myself? I need someone else to speak
For myself,
me.
while you're still alive.
Absolutely. You're still alive, but for whatever reason, it could be an illness.
Right.
It could be an accident, right? We don't know. It's unforeseeable. But we do need someone to handle our affairs. And it's going to be two areas. We need someone to handle our business affairs and just our day-to-day. Pay our mortgage, pay the rent, keep the lights on, right? And then we also need someone to make decisions for our health.
Right.
What's going to happen to us? Who's going to treat us? What hospitals? At what level of care? All of that is very, very important. And without those things in place, you're looking at court proceedings, you're looking at a lot of money, and you're looking at hiring attorneys for something that could have been avoidable.
Or someone else making decisions for you that you would have never
Right.
made
There you
for
go.
yourself.
Right.
And that's key. So that portion of it that you're talking about, whereas you're creating the estate so that it can also have a directive to address you while you're in life in case you become incapacitado. That portion is called the advance directive.
Exactly. There's two of those. So in terms of healthcare, it is the advanced directive. You're spot on. In terms of handling your affairs, that's going to be a durable power of attorney.
Durable power of
of
attorney.
attorney.
So there's a power of attorney, then there's a
Yes.
durable
Yes.
power of attorney.
Is there an endurable
What's the
power of
difference?
attorney?
Yeah, so the durable power of attorney, it just is going to continue up after you become incapacitated. So that's
Okay.
when you really need to use it, when you can't make those decisions for yourself.
And versus the regular power of
Yeah,
attorney?
the regular power of attorney is, oh, can you do this for me? You need the authority. I'm fine, but I just need out of convenience for someone else to do it.
And you can name that person, but you can also change that person. So don't get scared like you're locked in. Like, I don't know who I'm going to make
I feel
my power of attorney.
someone watching this saying, I agree with everything everyone's saying, but I just can't afford an attorney. What is my next step.
Yeah, I
if
can't
that's the
afford to
case.
create an estate. If I, that's why a lot of people I think don't have one is because number one, the cost they believe in creating an estate, but then also what am I covering? What do I care about? If I die and I leave debt, good riddance,
Right.
So help us address that. You're someone who, you're barely making rent right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good question in terms of the cost. It is an investment. But think of it like anything else. If you want to go on vacation, you save for it. You put aside the money to do it. And so that's what you would have to look at it with estate planning.
Okay.
And then approximately how much would it cost the average person to do?
It varies. And I say that because it depends on what you're coming to the table with. It depends on if you're someone who maybe is going to college. At very minimum, you're going to need those two documents that we talked about, the power of attorney and the healthcare directive. You might not need a trust. That might be a little overkill at that point, but you're going to need those documents, and that's going to cost less than a trust. Now, trust could range anywhere from $3,000 and up, depending upon what's needed. Right?
I will say this. The very first time I created a trust, it cost me $3,500 to do.
Yes.
Okay, that was a lot of money.
Yes.
Cost me $3,500, well worth it, great investment. When we just revised it, and it was very complicated now, it cost us $8,500 to do. So it was very pricey, but it was also extremely complicated. So is it fair to say to create an entire estate, depending upon from easiest to hardest, anywhere from maybe $3,000 to $8,500.
You're spot on as it relates to trust. Now, wills typically, because there's not as much that goes into a will in terms of the process of it. Now, those tend to be a little less expensive than a trust.
Okay.
I just heard, and I'm sure everybody's familiar, may he rest in peace, actor Chadwick Boseman.
Yes.
Played the Black Panther, to me, one of the most phenomenal actors of our time. It's sad to lose him so early, but it was even sadder to hear that in his death, he didn't have an estate plan, he didn't have a will, but he had a wife and he had parents who were elderly, who kind of relied on him, yet his finances were all over the place for a while, to the tune that the government, the local and the federal government, took more than, 40% of his entire wealth. And his family was left with the rest. But there's 40%. How does that happen?
Welcome to taxes. Welcome to taxes.
So you get taxed in your death.
Well, it depends on how much you have at the time and how much you're transferring. So that's why estate planning is so very important, because had he done that, that could have been avoided completely, and that money would have gone to his family.
So break that down, explain it. And break it down, explain it.
Right.
If you have a trust, you don't get taxed in your death?
No, that's not correct. So how it works is this. So the federal, and we're in the state of Georgia. There is no state tax. There is no state estate tax.
So every state is different.
Every state is different.
Okay.
There is a federal estate tax. So essentially that federal estate tax is if you make over $12.06 million as an individual, if you have that much in terms of your assets, more than that, you'll be taxed at the 40%.
So let's clarify that, because you just said as far as the 12.6 million, it's not actual cash. It's your
What the
assets.
estate is
Right.
worth.
So that's life insurance, that's retirement. So those are actual assets that go into your estate.
Okay.
So
people don't
that's
think
like
about
if you wrote a book, you're publishing your
There you go.
royalties.
There you go.
If you have a business that's still making money, and the business is in the estate as
There you
well.
go.
All the life insurance policies, your houses, your properties, all of that together is that worth 12 point, what did you just say?
06.
12.06. They
12.06.
changed that then, didn't
It
they?
changes. It goes up. It goes up. And the very important thing is, so when that number came into being, it's sunsets, meaning it has an expiration date, right? And that's in 2026. So it's very likely that can go down to $6 million from 12.06.
Oh, see, they don't play fair.
No.
Not at all.
Hey, wait, you do all this work.
Not
You
unless
set up your
something,
life,
not
you
unless
get your
something
assets.
changes, right? Not unless
Right.
something changes between now and then, and we'll just see.
So then what's the strategy? You break it into a different trust. You split your asset.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why when you said that all the things that you guys have, you guys are all set.
Well,
Okay,
okay,
good,
so then
good.
that makes sense. So whatever the max is before you get taxed
There you go.
in your death, you make sure that your assets are broken up potentially
Yes.
in multiple trusts
To avoid.
to avoid your family getting taxed at that high rate. Okay.
That sounds like a revisit then. So, and I'm going to use that to coincide with being married or becoming one, right?
Yes.
So somebody sets up their trust
Yes.
a certain way as they're a single man or a single woman, and then they come together with their partner.
Yes.
Now they have to revisit that, correct?
Absolutely. Any sort of major life event, either marriage, divorce, having children, adopting children, all of that. In addition, the laws change. The laws change all the time.
Right.
So that's something that needs to be addressed as well. But you definitely want to make sure that you contact your attorney to see what needs to change.
So maybe revise it every 3 years
There you go.
or something like
3
that.
years. That's exactly the
okay,
time.
which is not as expensive.
Right.
I really always wondered, and there are a lot of things we don't know until we're actually faced with it.
There you go.
Even we didn't know in doing all our planning and putting our ducks in a row that the limits are changing. So when you think you've got it covered, at one point it was you don't get taxed unless it's over 25 million. We were like, we ain't got no problem.
Right. And honestly,
had
Egypt,
25 million.
most people are probably not going to have a problem with that. Most people aren't. But
That is that just in Georgia?
no, that's the federal.
Okay.
Those are the federal numbers.
You know, what I loved about the idea of estate planning is that even if you don't have $500,000 to leave to your children or give your children in your life, or your parents, your elderly parents that rely on you, God forbid, in your death, if you take out a life insurance policy and make the trust the beneficiary, that's the key. You're not the beneficiary, because if you pass away, then still, who gets it?
Right.
But if the trust is the beneficiary of it, and then those family members are the beneficiaries of the actual trust,
Right.
then that insurance money passes to them. And if I'm understanding this correctly, that portion is untaxed.
You've got it.
Ooh, that was so sexy. We're going to cut right there. I'll be back. No, let me stop. Question.
Yes.
That's running through my head right now. You know, we
Okay.
have all of these social media financial gurus right now,
boy,
right? State planners and lawyers.
That's dangerous,
Tell
too.
me something that you've heard someone say online that was inaccurate and it just got under your skin and needs to be clarified.
So sometimes when it relates to the taxes that we were talking about, sometimes there's not a clear explanation of that. And so if it's not clear, then the listener is led astray.
Right.
So that is concerning.
Okay. The reason why I asked that, because we were on the phone with our tax guy, and she's running with it. She's like, well, this is supposed to be this, and I heard this, and I heard this. And he goes, well, did they tell you about this part?
Right.
They said that little excerpt, but there was a lot more to it.
Well, can I elaborate on what
Sure,
it was? Okay, so, and maybe a lot of you have seen this floating around online, where it's being suggested from folks who specialize in insurance products that if you take out whole life insurance policies and you can make it the family bank, and you can borrow from it.
Look, see, she don't like that.
0% interest. Okay, that's why I said it has to be addressed. You can borrow. You take out this whole life policy, and that you can borrow from it and make it a family bank. Some of it's true. Some of that's not true. Can you
Yeah.
explain?
So this is what I would say about that. You definitely want to make sure that, and that's fine. And I'm no shade. You know, everybody has to have, whatever social media and
Right.
what they're going to say. But you want to make sure that you go to a licensed professional. Licensed professional. And they're going to let you know in terms of financial planning
Right.
whether that is going to work or not.
Right.
I did come across a product that I really do love. There are insurance products, and I know you're not an insurance agent, but I want to throw it out because it was a discovery to be able to supplement our estate plan. It was an insurance policy that you pay a premium, a set amount, but you can also front load it.
Yes.
So now you front load it, and the benefit of it is astounding if you
Right.
front load it. But then when you reach a certain year in the policy, you don't have to pay into it anymore, and now you can annuitize it to use toward your retirement.
Right.
So I love that because it's a death benefit,
Yes.
For your family.
And then while you're...
You can front load it, and then the money grows untaxed.
Yes.
So it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep.
And that's
And then you can pull it out untaxed, annuitize it, and use it toward
Right.
retirement if you choose.
So that's the beauty of estate planning. So that's another tool, right? So it's not just a will or a trust. It's all of these tools working together. And that's why, again, it's very important to speak to someone about it.
Tools. I love that you said tools, because, again, that goes back to the initial question we started with. In the Black and Latin community, we don't get the tools to learn how to maneuver
A
in
lot of
life
communities don't know.
financially. But do the numbers
Specifically.
percentage-wise,
Yeah,
we are
29%.
low in being taught these things. We don't get the tools in relationships, finances, et cetera, right? So that just made me think about relationships and marriage. How long have you been married?
Oh, 12 years.
12 years. Okay. So remember when you sat down, I said, I'm going to get you for this one?
Oh, boy. Here
Because
we go.
I know people go there with
Here we
it,
go.
right? And that is, you said, consider a prenuptial.
Yes.
Consider a prenup.
Consider a prenup.
You have to. You have to. I think so. If you feel that you have substantial assets and you're coming to the table with them, I think it's only fair. Talk to someone about it. Consider it. Because you want to protect yourself, and you are going into this union, coming one. I get it. But at the same time, you want to protect yourself for the unforeseeable.
Why did you say you were going to get her for it?
Jokingly.
Because we got to be honest. Can I disclose?
Getting meaning I need to put it on the table
Okay.
so that others can hear, because there's a lot of people that go to war with that. Because there's the side that says, well, if you do the prenup, that means you're setting up for failure.
There
right?
is that side. Well, listen, we've had a lot of people on this podcast, even some that are from the church, who say, you know, you got to have one account, only one account, so that there's no financial infidelity.
Right.
We've had some who say no prenups because of that very reason.
Yeah.
Mike and I had a prenup when we got married. As a matter of fact, after we were married a few years in, and this is just full disclosure, we had a rocky period where we didn't know if we were going to make it.
Yeah.
So when we decided we were going to go to counseling and renew this marriage, we also then got a post-nuptial agreement.
Yep.
And there were the generation around us saying, y'all in y'all agreements, y'all in y'all contracts, and what are y'all doing? But talk to that.
Yeah, so listen, that is in the same vein of estate planning. You want to be proactive. You want to prepare. There's nothing wrong with preparing. There's nothing wrong with preparing. So whether it's a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement, you want to at least have the conversation.
Sure.
And hopefully your spouse or your fiance is open to it. Now, if they're not open to it, that's a whole nother thing.
And I know there's some people wondering right now, what is a postnuptial? Like, is that your first time hearing the term postnuptial? You want to explain it?
Absolutely. So a postnuptial is similar to a prenuptial. The prenuptial is in place prior to the union. The postnuptial is something that you visit after you're married.
Right.
So it can still have the same requirements. It could still have terms in it that you agree with. Now, with either one of these agreements, there are some rules. So you can't give someone a prenuptial agreement the day before you get married.
Right.
You have to give them an opportunity to review. Postnup, it's the same. You have to give them an opportunity to review and have an attorney review it as well.
Got it.
Or it gets
Got
thrown
it.
out.
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
it can.
Makes
You want to
sense.
make sure you follow the rules.
Makes sense.
What do you think about the idea of own nothing but control everything?
In terms of your assets,
Explain just that term for those who've heard it.
That's
but
one of
don't.
those terms that gets thrown around on social
You
media a lot.
personally own nothing, but you can still control everything. Isn't that how we look at having a trust and having your estate lined up?
yes. So the way that a trust works is essentially, in its most simple form, you're taking everything out of your name and you're putting it into the name of the trust.
Right.
So there's a certain level of protection that you receive with that, but you still have the control. If it's irrevocable is a set and done.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you're clear on those terms.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so you do get the control, but also the protection. So it
So
is
does
very
that-
helpful.
That includes house?
Yes.
Can you do your car?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you want something from me, you're lucky to get $10 out of my name. I own zero.
Yeah.
He
Right.
owns zero.
Yes.
And that's, that was something else you asked early on. What do you wish you knew when you were younger? I didn't know that. It was all about acquiring assets and building everything in your name. So you're also building debt in your name, and you're building liability
You are,
in your
absolutely.
name. So that's also something you can lose
Yes.
if
Yes.
anything happens.
There you go.
But if you take it out of your name, it's in your businesses, it's in your holding companies, it's in
The
your
trust.
trust, then it gives you I'm not ever going to say safe,
Yes.
but it gives
Right.
you some level
Right.
of safety.
Absolutely. Some
That
level
part,
of protection.
That part.
I mean, you tell me, babe, but I felt like after we set our paper in order, we literally put it away in a safe somewhere and then think about it. But it also gave peace of mind to be able to just exist peacefully in our relationship.
So here's some truth. Okay. When we first did it, I could care less about a peace of mind. It gave you a peace of mind. I knew it didn't matter. So that's why I was like, here, whatever. If this is what you need to feel comfortable, here you go.
Right.
If something ever happened, I could care less what we got together. Because to be honest with you, as a man, if we make millions of dollars together, I'm still giving it all to you.
Yeah.
Because
See, that's good. That's
you
good.
got the kids,
That's
you got
good.
everybody. I don't care. We would never even need to revisit those papers because I don't need the heartache.
Right.
I did it once, I can do it again. Just take it all.
But I can sit here assertively and tell you, I am so in love with this man, I don't intend to ever have to use this stuff,
There you
right?
go.
And our estate plan is our estate plan together. It's not mine, it's not his.
Right.
But still, it gave, as a woman of a certain age, after being on my own for so long, loving him, knowing that everything was feeling good and looking good, it still gave me peace to know that, God forbid, if this doesn't work out, we're covered.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what you have, I know what I have, and we're not at a loss
Right.
for it.
Exactly.
So, so shoot us. But it works for us.
Right,
And,
and
we're still together 18 years later.
There you go.
Right.
And I consider it adulting. Let's be real. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the heart. Don't hide. Don't, let's put it all on the table.
Let me ask you something. When it comes to relationships, right? We talk about what do you want in life, X, Y, and Z. You think people should put that on the table right from the start?
Oh, estate planning?
Estate planning, prenup, all of it.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting when people are engaged, there's so much excitement behind it. What's the wedding? What are the colors? What's my
Yes.
dress going to look like? What are we going to eat? Who's going to be the entertainment? No discussion for most people about estate planning.
That's a
Right.
really
None.
good point. Just
Right.
like there's no focus on, we're so busy planning the wedding, you don't plan the marriage.
Right.
You
Right.
do the work on
Right.
the marriage.
It's critical.
And put that paperwork in place up front. It's just like, add that to the list of things to do.
Absolutely.
Call the
Absolutely.
florist, call the attorney, and build an estate plan. Yeah.
If there's one thing that you can tell a viewer or a listener right now before we depart, what would that be? I'm talking about that thing that everyone should have in their toolbox.
Right. So you're going to want to have a will or a trust and those documents that we talked about. But a lot of people don't have it. So we talked about the numbers, 29%. We're in the 29%.
Yeah.
So many people aren't. Just pick up the phone and make a call. A lot of attorneys will provide free consultations. So you can at least talk to someone. You just got to make that first
Yes.
step. Pick up the
Yes.
phone.
And there are resources online, I do
Absolutely.
believe, for free
Right.
for folks who want to find out more about how to set up a plan. There's
Yes.
even some documents which I totally think going to an attorney and tailoring one
Yes.
for you and your unique situation and family. But if you're in that situation where you say, I got $500, Egypt, and that's all I can spend, you can download docs that are
Yes.
automated
Yep.
for you as well. And
Yeah.
it still counts. It counts. Get it
And
notarized.
In Egypt, there are organizations like the Atlanta Legal Aid that will provide. They have
That's
sometimes
here.
That's here. That
Yeah.
They have, and they're everywhere. So they're organizations that will provide services for people who don't have the
In
means.
whatever city they're
Right,
in.
and
Okay.
that's you just have to research it.
Got it.
Anitra, you
Got it.
rock. We got to have
You
you
are
back.
amazing.
Anitra
Thank you so
Walker.
much.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
she's a mama, she's a lawyer, she's a boss lady,
Oh,
and we just
boy.
so appreciate
Thank
you.
We
you. I
can't forget
appreciate
she's
you
a wife.
guys.
She's a wife.
I
Yes,
am a
she
wife.
is.
And so we like to leave with one to go on, one to grow on.
Yes.
Which one do you want to take today?
I'll go with the go on. Again, I usually sit here and I listen to the conversations and I gravitate towards whatever I feel is good for me. And literally all I got from this, to be honest with you, is not all,
Yeah.
is that we have to set ourselves up the right way. We have to do the work early. Teach our kids what we did not know, right? Don't give them things that we didn't have. Give them things we did not know.
We
There you
didn't
go.
know. Yeah,
There you
knowledge,
go.
knowledge is power. I think in a nutshell, you just said it. You fail to plan, you plan to fail.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the responsible thing to do as an
Yeah.
adult. Not as just as a
It is.
parent, not as a married person, but as an adult.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And you're going to be gone, but you want your family to be okay. They're
Yeah.
already going to be dealing with the fact that you're not here. But why pile on with confusion and trying to figure things out?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marriage and Money Podcast with Egypt and Mike. We have enjoyed Anitra. Listen, tell your friends to tune in to
Married to Real Estate.
Married to Real Estate on HGTV.